to call the meeting to order. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Good evening and welcome to the Monday, January 6, 2025 meeting of the Westport Select Board. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. Don't have much in the way of comments. Happy New Year. Thanks to all our public safety officers who worked over the holidays. Our next meeting is going to be 3 weeks from tonight on January 27. Because 2 weeks is a holiday, so January 27 is our next meeting. Town Hall is going to be closed on Monday, January 20, right? But we're not closed for the Carter Memorial, are we? No. Okay, so January 20, Town Hall will be closed. I have a couple of acknowledgements. We've lost some more Westporters in the last few weeks. The first one I want to mention is Walter D. Cookie Quinn, of 91 of Westport. He was a Navy veteran of the Korean conflict. Prior to retirement, he was a fleet superintendent for the United States Postal Service in Fall River. He was a founding member and longtime secretary of the Westport Fishermen's Association, former assistant shellfish warden for Westport, and he was a member of the American Legion James Morris Post 145 and a communicant of St. John the Baptist Church. So our condolences to the Quinn family. Does anybody know him specifically? No?
I knew him because I lived not too far. He used to come to our post office. I'd see him often. He was always a gentleman, always had a good sense of humor, a good guy.
Yeah. I'd also like to acknowledge the passing of John Richard of Westport. He passed away on December 16 at the age of 76. He was a self-taught mechanic, an avid fisherman, always willing to help friends, family, and neighbors. He retired as a custodian from the Westport school system, where he was loved and cherished by the children and the staff. So our condolences to the John Richards family. Did you know him, John?
No, I didn't know him.
Okay, so those are the acknowledgments and recognitions we have. The first item on the agenda for 2A is a request from the Acoxit Club, Inc. and the Acoxit Club, Inc. doing business as the Pro Shop to approve a change of officers directors for the liquor licenses. Manager Betty Jill Tate, President Christopher Thompson, Vice President Betty Jill Tate, Treasurer Matthew Forbes, Clerk Rebecca Merchant, Directors Peter Briggs, Duncan Law, Jonathan Monge, Sean Mullaney, Peter Rosenfeld, Mary Berg, Elizabeth Opie, William Barnes, Thomas Kevin Howley, and Lindsay Tompkins. So there's 2 licenses here, and this is pretty common. They change the directors yearly. Is all the paperwork in order? Is there anything, comments or questions from the board? This is a public hearing. Anything from the public? So what's the desire of the board?
Madam Chair, I move these appointments be accepted.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the request for the change. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous with 1 absence. We have appointment and resignation. We have a request from the Cultural Council to appoint Paula Cummings.
Move appointment of Paula Cummings to the Cultural Council.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous with 1 absence. We request to appoint Randy Bassett as the temporary building commissioner. Jim, you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, current building inspector is going to be taking personal leave for a few weeks, and we need somebody to issue permits, issue occupancy permits, and inspect buildings during that time. Randy from Dartmouth, who is the building commissioner over in Dartmouth, has agreed to do this on a part-time basis, hourly basis. He'd be coming in after hours to review permits, and he would set up inspections for weekends or on off hours from Dartmouth. This would be temporary. It'd be about $60 an hour, and it would be an as-needed basis. We really need somebody in there to fill in while Ralph's out, so I would recommend approval.
All right, is there any questions?
Madam Chair, I would move approval of the appointment of Randy Bassett as temporary building commissioner.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous with 1 absence. I just want to make a note on 3C that one of the candidates for the principal clerk has withdrawn, so we're only going to entertain one appointment today. So we have a request from Beverly Bish, the Council on Aging Director, to appoint Miguel Santiago as the part-time maintenance specialist. Jim, do you want to say anything about this one?
Yeah, this is, it's a position that we filled recently, and that employee had left. It's a part-time position over the Council on Aging. Beverly Bish has recommended approval of this position. I'd recommend approval as well.
Thank you. Did you want to say something?
Yes, so I'm Martine Weinfried, and I'm the chair of the Council on Aging Board, and this is Miguel.
Oh, sorry, if you're going to say more than a couple words, you got to go to the microphone, sorry. I thought you were just doing something quick.
We are delighted to recommend Miguel for the part-time position as maintenance specialist. He has been in and out of the Council on Aging through the contractors, and he's retiring from the contracting company, and will be free to take this position in 2 or 3 weeks at the end of the month.
All right, thank you. You moved that already, right?
No, I didn't.
No, did we have a motion yet? No?
No.
Move that we appoint Miguel Santiago as part-time maintenance specialist at the Council on Aging.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous with one absence. Welcome aboard, or back, or in a different position. We have action item 4A, Chapter 61A release for Daniel G. Richard and David L. Taylor, trustees of the Richard Family Trust, 533 Horse Neck Road, map 73, lots 73, 74, and 76, as shown in A&R Plan Book 187, Plan 71, dated February 14, 2023. Jim, you want to explain this one?
Yes, this property is currently under Chapter 61A, which allows them, because of their use as farming, they get a reduced tax rate. They're looking to sell the property. The town has first right of refusal as they take it out of Chapter 61A. It has been distributed to the various committees and boards. There has been no interest in keeping it under 61A or having the town exercise its option to purchase. So I would recommend that the board not exercise its option and release the property from 61A.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I will move with respect to the parcels referenced that we release the property from 61A and pass on the offer to purchase the property.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous with one absence. B was removed. C is a request to approve the side letter of agreement with the General Teamsters Local Union 251. Jim?
Yes, so this is for the transfer station foreman position. The board has already voted on this. This is just the formal agreement for the side letter with the union. It's created the new position at the transfer station with the step hourly rates as well. So I'd recommend approval. Again, this was approved previously. This is just the signed letter. So it'd be a recommendation to endorse the side letter of agreement with the Teamsters Union.
All right, thank you. Any questions? It's the pleasure of the board.
So we need a motion on this?
I think we need to move to approve the side letter of agreement.
I would make a motion to approve the side letter of agreement as discussed.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So that's 4 in favor, 1 absence. We have a request from Matt Armendo, Board of Health Director, to appoint Kevin Collin as transfer station foreman. Did you want to talk about this? Or Tanya, did you want to talk about this?
I was just asked last night to attend, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Do you want to just tell us what this?
Yes, I did not interview this person, but they have done some work at the transfer station before. He has a CDL license. I know Matt has been very happy with the work that he's done, and he's excited about getting him on board. It's a difficult position to fill, to fill these positions with licensed drivers, so I would recommend approval.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I was just curious, I sent an email to Jim whether or not we had a like a resume for this candidate.
The application, I did upload it just now. I received it at the end of the day after I was already gone. There is a problem with the formatting. It's very hard to read, which is why Matt didn't get it to me earlier. They have been working on it, but I do have it here if anybody wants to
Yeah,
take a look.
well, that's okay. If we had it, I'd be interested in it. But it's recommended by the Board of Health, and I think we can trust their judgment. So, Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the hiring of Mr. Colon as transfer station foreman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint the transfer station foreman. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So that's 4 in favor, 1 absent.
Madam Chair, if I could, I was
Yes.
wondering when this gentleman would be coming on board.
Oh, do we know the start date?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Oh, good,
Quickly.
great.
Tim's retired, we meet. Otherwise, we're using highway department staff at double time, and that gets expensive really quickly. They've been great, but we'd like to start the person as soon as possible.
So the people who couldn't hear that, so Tanya Ryden from the Board of Health is here. She just mentioned that if we don't start this person now, we'll have to pay overtime to highway department personnel to do the work. So that's why we're bringing
Good.
them on quickly.
Great.
E, we have a request from the Infrastructure Oversight Committee to fill the town engineer position. So there is a memo from Jim about this. So Manny, you're the chair of the Oversight Committee, right? Do you want to tell us what this is about?
So, was it last town meeting that we set this money aside for the town engineer?
Yes.
Yes.
So then it was put into highway. So with all the projects we have going on in the town and your workload, I think it's time that we do this. And that's why I requested to put it in front. And I'm reviewing the stuff that you put in here, education experience, civil engineering and or related fields, minimum 10 years. That's good. And then you have preferred requirements. I think maybe if we put in, registered professional engineer or say, an LSP, so that might give us a little bit more room, or a registered land surveyor. If we put it as like City of Fall River did, if we put it as a director of public infrastructure, I think you could look into Fall River, how they work that, because as you know, the city engineer in Fall River has, 30 years' experience, but he's not a PE. So that's how they worked it that way. So I think it's not a requirement if we have the field-related experience, and they're either, they have some kind of license.
So in the memo that Jim sent to, was in our packet, so there's kind of 4 main points that Jim pointed out. So one was the job description. So Jim, the job description that you included for us, can you just tell us where that came from?
Yeah, this is just developed from similar positions in other towns. I did include in the job description supervisory responsibility. This was based on conversations we had, I think, last year. So that just needs to be clarified. Would they be supervising the highway department, cemetery department? These positions normally do have some supervision as part of their workload. So that would have to be just finalized. You may also need to send it to the Personnel Board to have them approve the position and the job description. We can amend the job description on those qualifications if the Select Board chooses. Again, I think the important things as far as the job description goes is, one, the Personnel Board should approve it, and the Select Board will need to approve it, and then what is the oversight? What will their responsibilities be? Responsibilities are listed pretty much in the job description, but supervisory responsibilities we would have to determine.
I think public facilities too, and infrastructure, like the buildings that we have and stuff, like some of the recent problems that we've had in many of the buildings, and, like the recent issue with the septic here, where it was just a maintenance problem, that, when I looked into it, could have got into a more problem where it was failed. I mean, it was failed, but it was something that could be repaired, but it was only because it hadn't been maintained in so many years. So, if that's one of the, the director of infrastructure's responsibilities is to make sure that we're up on, our water testing, our septic systems, and all the, the buildings that the town runs too, not only just street infrastructure.
So it sounds like we do need some work on the job description. So for one, you just called it, he's got it listed as town engineer, and you just called it something else.
I think the way to go would be the director of infrastructure, and then all the departments could refer to him on infrastructure.
And by all the departments, you mean highway, cemetery, and facilities, the custodial?
Board of Health, Planning,
Board of Health?
Building Department, yes.
Well, the Board of Health is a board, and that's elected, but you meant the Health
When
Department.
it comes to certain, the Board of Health is, how I've seen them handle the public and the town infrastructure seems to be an issue, so somebody that's in charge of that, I mean, they're.
Well, the Board of Health is an elected board. I think you might mean the Health Department.
The Health Department, yes.
Okay, so it sounds like the job description needs work then, if you want to include those
It's
things.
very simple, Director of Public Infrastructure, and we can work it out from there.
And work it out from there would mean we'd work it out in the job description.
Right.
So you're.
Just a
so-
little, I like what Jimmy's got here, just a little tweaking.
Okay.
I don't
so-
see a need at the first onset to get this out to eliminate the local requirement. I think the local.
So that, we haven't gotten to that topic yet, but I'm still working on the job description topic. So on the job description topic, so you're suggesting including highway and cemetery, but we as a board haven't really talked about whether we want the town engineer to be responsible, like, do we want Chris Gonzalez and the cemetery department reporting to this person or not? And I don't know that we've actually talked about that, and we can set aside your other departments for a second, but like, what are we thinking here?
Well, Madam Chair, as you'd mentioned, we haven't discussed it, and I think that has implications. And I'm not opposed to it. It might be a good idea. But I don't see these other departments reporting to him in the normal sense of the word report. That's a big difference in the authority that's exercised by these people now. Having said that, after discussion, we might agree it's the way to go. So I think we need to know what we mean by that. That has to be defined.
So one of the things so like when you talk to the MS4 stuff, so highway takes care of the cleaning of it. Right now, planning's got a consultant that is doing paperwork that right now is costing us $14,000 a year for the consultant. I mean, the director of infrastructure, the right person that we hire could handle that paperwork for that department. So that would help planning. Same thing with the building department. I mean, the building department, so right now we have issues with Mass Highway access permits. So it seems, since I've been on the planning board, it's been an issue on who's responsible for this. Like the utility access permit right now, that the gas company was supposed to file, I mean, they sent a violation into highway. So basically, that's not a violation for highway, it's a violation for the utility, which is the gas company. So when we're in a similar situation with our water permit for the water access, the same thing that happened to Coastal Healing. Tim King filed out that paperwork, and then, 5 years later, we finally get the work finished. And that's there's a new inspector on Mass Highway right now, and they're kind of going right down the whole strip, following up on that stuff. So this is only the beginning and the tip of the iceberg. So if we don't get somebody in this position right now, the select board's gonna have more of these types of issues.
I think you're probably right. I'm just trying to understand, like, is the job description we have now with a few tweaks that we talk about today sufficient? Or should we task someone with working through the job description more specifically so that we have something written and then work with the personnel boards? I think that's really, and then, so I guess that's my question. I don't know how you all feel about, are we ready to go with this job description that we have tonight with a few discussion items, or we need to spend some more time on it?
Madam Chair, could you define it? With regards to planning, the Personnel Board, do they usually, and this could be also, if you allow a question to Jim, is this something that the Personnel Board will be working on with the job description? Do they have a role to play here? Or are they simply approving the position?
Yeah, I had that same question, that whether, because it would be a contract employee, like that, like the highway surveyor is, so do we need the personnel board to weigh in?
My reading, yes. I think they need to weigh in on job description and the position itself.
And we can take or leave whatever they say, like, are they advisory, or they have to approve it?
I think they have to approve it. My reading of the bylaws, they have to approve it.
Okay. Does anybody have a different understanding of that? So, I guess then, do we want to have some, like, how do we want to go about getting this to the personnel board? Do you want the infrastructure oversight committee to work on refining the job description? Do you want us to just give a few comments to
I
Jim?
think Jim did an excellent job in his draft. There's a couple little things to tweak, and I think Jim has the ability to tweak that and get it right over to that
Well,
personnel board.
increasing the scope of responsibilities beyond what he's already posed, I don't think is a small tweak. So he has in here tweaking he has in here that they're responsible for managing the highway department and managing the cemetery department. So that's what's in there now. So what are the other departments that you're
Well,
suggesting?
I'm suggesting that we call him the Director of Public Infrastructure. And that's simply stated, the Director of Public Infrastructure. So all the public infrastructure, anything to do with public infrastructure, all the departments can refer to him if they have an issue.
Maybe we have to differentiate between line authority and advisory role.
Okay.
And I think that's where we're getting into the weeds here, which is, we've got the line authority with those two departments. And what we also have talked about is an advisory role with some of the other departments that may need the expertise or benefit from the expertise of this position.
Yeah, I mean, in most cases, so, like in the planning board, we got Bob Daly sitting there, that's, volunteer, PE, so he helps everybody and helped you when you were there and so forth. But the applicants have peer review. So in many cases, I mean, not to pick on the Board of Health again, but, so peer review sends in information to the Board of Health. The Board of Health tries making changes, and they're not qualified to make changes. It can be referred to the town engineer. When we're looking at the issue with the highway department in Dartmouth on the culvert, it's pretty simple. If we have somebody in-house that can just do our paperwork for say our DEP paperwork and stuff like that for the different departments and things that we're doing. It's pretty simple.
So that's what you're talking about, advisory, what Mr. Teacher's making the
It's
distinction
going to
here.
be directed to the select board. It's not like it's going to be, he can help all these different departments, but it's going to be under our direction. I mean, Jimmy would be his boss, just like he is with the other departments. I mean, I think it's just gonna, the town administrator has a lot more things to deal with than this type of stuff, more important things.
So I guess, then I guess the question is, what I'm more concerned about is the actual authority and supervision that they're exercising. Because I'm very interested in making sure I know who would directly report to this position, if anyone. So are you envisioning the town engineer as kind of part of the highway department, but the highway surveyor is still reporting to Jim, or you're?
I mean, I would prefer that he was independent. He was the Director of Public Infrastructure, so that all departments could refer to him, but he refers to the select board. He's an advisor to the select board.
So you're suggesting that they don't exercise any supervisory authority at all?
But that's what you have in your job description.
But his job description now has
Well,
supervisory
I'm
authority.
sure it can be in certain departments, but like you were saying with the Board of Health, they're an elected board, the planning board's an elected board, but we have town employees that work for those boards that, not say report to them, but can consult with them.
I'm trying to understand who you want to report to him,
Well,
if anybody.
I mean, anything,
Because the way this is written right now
anything to do with
is
public
the
infrastructure.
highway department would report to him. Chris Gonzalez would report, the way this is written right now, Chris Gonzalez would report to this person,
Right.
and the cemetery foreman, whose name I cannot recall at the moment,
Mike Brulot.
it would also report to this person. That's how it's written. So is that what the infrastructure is suggesting that those two groups report to this person.
That was my understanding and suggestion, and then that we just make reference in the job description to the advisory role, so that,
That makes sense to me.
so that, you know, it's the dotted line versus the straight line of accountability.
Yeah, so your straight line to the highway and cemetery,
Correct.
dotted line, or just advisory or available
Right,
for everybody.
yes.
No, and the right applicant would enhance all these other departments.
Does having the highway department report under a different management structure impact the contract, the bargaining contract that we have with them?
It could. I would have to get verification on that. So the employees themselves are still
Report to Chris?
report to the same person, so that wouldn't change. So my understanding is it may not, but I would need confirmation on that.
All right, so do we want to, so on the job description, do we want to just send comments to Jim, or is there anything else big in the job description we wanted to talk about specifically? Do you want to have Jim take another pass at it?
Yeah, I mean,
So the protocol would be, if we kick it back to Jim with a couple of suggestions, or have a period of time where we can make those suggestions to Jim, does it come back to us before going to the personnel board? Or is it gonna go from Jim to the personnel board?
I think it could go to the personnel board.
That's,
Because you're not, because we didn't talk about anything dramatic from what's
no,
in here.
I'm
So-
fine with that.
Okay, so, so from the job description, Jim will make some of those, I don't think there's very many updates we have to make here, but, so we'll take that into account and relook at it and refer it to the personnel board. So the second item on here, actually, I think when we talked long ago about a Department of Public Works, we had talked about putting the custodial services under that umbrella too, but are they in a different, are we contracting that out now?
So we have contracted services for some custodials, and then we have a maintenance specialist here in town that is in the union, the Teamsters Union, that does the town hall annex.
So that would be the same as the cemetery. Do you have any thoughts about one way or the other, about whether that's,
No, I think, right now, the way the structure in government here is set up is, I'm here, and then there's like all these departments underneath, right? So that most of them answer to me and the select board. It would be great if we had some type of tree formation where 2 or 3 of these departments answers to one supervisor, who then answers to myself and the select board. And that was my original thought when we were looking at this, similar to what Fall River does. So under the town and city engineer, they have the planning office, conservation. I think that's it at this point. They used to have more. And they report to the engineer. So that's part of his job description, is to supervise those departments, and licensing, supervise those departments. But he also helps out other departments, right? So if the Board of Health or some other department has an engineering question, they go to the town, city engineer, and he helps them out, but he doesn't have direct supervisory powers or authority over those positions. So I think from what would help me is if I knew what departments we would like the engineer to supervise, and which departments we would like the engineer to assist. And I'm thinking assistant would be all departments. Supervisory, we would have to determine what that would be, and I just have to confirm with town council that it would not be a negotiating issue with the unions. And if it wasn't negotiating, I think we can get through that as well.
okay, so besides cemetery and highway, I think custodial fits in there. I can't remember who else we had for when we looked at DPW a long time
They
ago.
looked at transfer station at one point. That goes way back.
Transfer station would make sense, but that's under, so if we have the transfer station, or like you just said, like planning or conservation, those are other boards that would have to weigh in then, which might make it more complicated.
well, I know, I mean, I spoke with Michael about this, and the big thing was the MS4 stuff. So that would be a big lift burden, somebody that could help with that.
Yeah, we want him to do that.
And with, but then when we're talking, the MS4 stuff, and we're talking at the buildings, just the new buildings that we built, like the fire station and the police station, that stuff's, got compliant storm scepters and all of that type of stuff that probably not being maintained correctly. And, highway doesn't even have the equipment to maintain that stuff, so that's gotta be subbed out. Somebody that's knowledgeable at all that stuff can make sure that they're up to date on that. And the MS4 stuff's only gonna keep getting more stringent and
Did you have some?
I just wanted to affirm that the Board of Health would welcome somebody to give us some informal advice, and as long as it's that dotted line authority, because there are statutory implications of having anything, more stringent than that. And so that'd be very supportive of that advisory role. And if you're interested in the transfer station being under this person, I'd be happy to take that back to the Board of Health for discussion and give us our recommendation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we should at least think through the transfer station in addition to, because that's more infrastructure related. Okay, do you have, so on the job description, so the job description, if you can make some edits, refer to the personnel board. If anybody comes up with some things they want changed, let Jim know, not the whole board, so we're not discussing it, but let Jim know if you think of something else. So the second point that you raised in the memo was the residency requirements. In the town bylaws right now, employees in the highway department are required to be residents. So if we were to post this right now, we would have to post it for Westport residents. But I was talking to Jim, I think we should probably have a bylaw change proposed for town meeting to remove residency from, we're already kind of effectively reducing it from police and fire contract. I think highway just is, but I think that's a separate issue. So if we were to post this before the town meeting change, it would have to be for Westport residents. And then, Jim, you also had an item in here about the budget concern. So this is budgeted in the current year budget, and then it's budgeted in your draft budget for next year. So it's been budgeted. But we also have needs in excess of what we have from the revenue, so he's just pointing that out. I don't know if anybody has comments. And then the last one was kind of reiterating the need that Manny was talking about why we actually need this position. Okay, so Jim, do you need anything else from us on that?
No, so at this point, I'll tweak the job description. I'll get copies out to a mocked-up copy out to the board, and then I will forward it to the personnel board.
Okay, anything else on that? Anybody? All right, thank you. We have a request from the Long-Term Building Committee to approve RGB Architects contract for the municipal building feasibility study for $150,000. Jim, you want to tell us about that, or Craig, do you want to?
I can start if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was approved, discussed and approved at the last Select Board meeting. This was the recommendation from the Long-Term Building Committee. We just formalized the contract. I did discuss with them. The committee had some concerns about their timeline. They still think that they can be pretty aggressive and get it done, but they acknowledge that it could extend beyond what they anticipated, and they're looking, roughly about a 6-month timeline overall at this point. So this is just a formalized contract. I'd recommend approval from the board.
So in short, it incorporated the concerns we had at the last meeting. Okay, I move approval.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous with one absence. We have a request from the Infrastructure Oversight Committee to reorganize the committee to appoint Evan Almeida to the committee. So it looked like the reorganization is that Manny Soares would be the select board representative, and then to change one of the planning board seats to an at-large seat, and then appoint Evan Almeida to that at-large seat. Is that correct?
Well, Evan was the person that we were looking, but Jim, could we use him as a highway representative to the Infrastructure Oversight Committee instead of an at-large?
So the first you need to decide what the seat should be, and then you should decide who's in the seat, right? So there's no highway, so right now, there's 2 planning board, a select board, business to business, economic development, 2 at-large, and FinCom. And so the proposal is switch one of the planning board seats to an at-large. So are you saying we should switch it
I think we should
to?
switch it to highway. we don't have a representative from Highway.
What do people think?
My only comment to that is if you do highway, then it's become a highway appointment. It would be an overtime. Possibly be overtime pay for him if he attended the meetings.
Oh, if he attended as a highway appointment, then it would be as an employee.
Right.
If it was an at-large appointment, then it would be as a citizen.
I move the recommendation of the town administrator with respect to Evan Almeida and the board.
What was the, at the at-large or at the highway?
At large.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the change is to switch that one planning board seat to at-large seat.
Correct.
And to appoint Evan Almeida.
Yes.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous with one absence.
And then just to confirm that Mr. Soers would be the representative for the select board. Right now, he's a planning board rep.
Oh, did we vote on that already? We didn't.
No.
All right, you want to be the select board rep on them? Okay. So I want to move.
Well, Steve wasn't, he's gone.
Yeah, so Steve has resigned from the committee.
And we don't want to lose Bob, so we got to keep Bob as,
Okay, so Manny's going to fill in on the select board. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that Manny Soers represent this committee as select board member.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous with one absence. There we go.
thank you.
H, we have a request to enter into mediation with the city of Fall River for past water billing. Do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so we've been working with Fall River on the past water billing for a few years now, for over 3 years now since I started. I thought we were pretty close. It actually went before the Watuppa Water Board, and they agreed to the agreement that the Select Board had discussed previously. The City Council had concerns, and we're looking for a different agreement, so the Watuppa Water Board has requested, and the City of Fall River has requested that we present this through a mediator and see if we can come up with a different decision or a similar decision. I think that's the next step, so I would recommend Select Board authorize us to go to mediation on the water billing with Fall River. We would have a mediation, right now it's tentatively scheduled for, I think, February 12th. It should only be roughly a half day, and we'll see where it goes from there. This would be non-binding, so it would have to come back before the Select Board regardless of what the mediation came up with. But I think it's the next step in getting this resolved.
So we already been negotiating with them, but this formalizes it through a mediator. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? What's the pleasure of the board?
Move accept the town administrator's recommendation to hire a mediator for the Fall River water billing issue.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous with one absence. Thank you. Now we have on the agenda a discussion of the Council on Aging Strategic Plans. I'm going to invite you to come forward.
Happy New Year, and thank you.
Same to you.
I think when I came before you before, I said I'd be here with the final report to present to you. That was in late October, and since then, we've been talking about our strategic plan. I think in your packet, you were given an executive summary. I think one of the things that this is a report that has been coming, I think I had said before, for years. And things like the pandemic, et cetera, had gotten in the way of really hunkering down. And I'm really excited. I don't know if you've really had a chance to get into the full report of 22-plus pages. But this was really taking the information that the people who are living in Westport gave to us. Questionnaire had gone out, it was mailed to homes of everybody who was 60 or older. We compiled that information. There were further interviews, there were focus groups. that went on, so this was really a multi-year project. What I'd like to point out is that this was really no cost to the town. This was all done with volunteer time, money, cooperation with both the high school and UMass students. This was led by Irene Buck and Beverly Bish. Our consultant was paid for by a grant for just this very purpose. So we really felt like we had a lot to work with, a lot of information. It was hard getting it down to the executive summary. Some of the really, I think, interesting findings are how active and capable this population is. If you look closely, or if that probably half of the town's population comes under the auspices of the state's definition of Council on Aging, 55 and older, which is probably most people that we know, not everybody. But these are people that through our interviews and our focus groups, they're not dead yet. They want to work. They want to do things. They're very capable. They have a lot to offer. They've had a wide variety of careers and responsibilities. So we urge not only our board and the Council on Aging, but all boards and commissions to take advantage of this resource, and that it's something that we really don't seem to do here. The image is that once you're retired, that you have nothing to do and that we golf all day. And when we're not golfing, I don't know what else we're doing, but some of us are just busy doing other things. That's all I can say.
Go for golf.
And you'll see that two of our board members are with me tonight, David Lalima and Lisa Costa. So we're pretty enthusiastic about what we have found and what we have done. From all of our work, we came up with a new vision statement and a new mission. And I think that it was really time to update. And part of our mission statement is that we are to be the go-to agency. Well, we have been. When people have questions about what do I do for my mother, calls come from really all over the country. I have a relative that lives in Westport. We haven't heard from them. What shall I do? And we have our outreach workers who work with, that would either go check or to go with the police. And we have cooperation with both police and fire, and we have people on staff who are really first responders. I think that those people are often overlooked in that they save the town quite a bit of money. They save the town in that they help problem solve. Some of the programs, I think that we compiled some of the information this past year. And what was very interesting is that just in the Medicare, Medicaid update season that was this fall and into December, that probably close to $100,000 was saved by individuals with the outreach workers having worked. Now, that's real money that stays with the people in town to be able to spend in town to pay their bills. And I think that that's something that our townspeople don't realize as an agency, that really it is the town's social service agency. And we coordinate with the health department and all the other departments. So I think that this is something that we're trying to do, is to sort of promote, make people aware that your Council on Aging is here. We're mostly grant funded, and I think that if you look at you've heard Beverly, and if you look at the information, that most of the operational budget and the extras come from grants, not from the town's budget, not from the taxpayers. Comes from the state, comes from private sources, comes from donations, comes from many of the programs are self-funded or cost-effective in that they pay for, people pay to have an instructor, for example. So those are the things that we want to really remind people. There are other ways that we help save money for the individuals who are in town, the population, the people of Westport. And also, the full report is available to anybody who would like to spend the time and read it, and that's through emailing us, the Westport COA Board @gmail.com. And I think for the 4 statements that we have for our action items, really what we want to do is to promote public communication, that people know who we are, what we do, and that this is a town agency. So we're working on additional communications in providing better materials, perhaps. We're trying to meet with other boards and commissions. I know that David and I have met several times with the board, the superintendent of schools and the education board. How can we make better links? How can we have provide opportunities for their career days? I mean, many people have had some very interesting careers. How do you get there? You know, do you have to go to Harvard, or can you get some other training? Can you get it in high school? What's required? So we've been working in some of our discussions. We're also crazy about pickleball, and so that's another whole story that we can get into. We plan to host more events, if you will, at the Council on Aging and let people see what is going on there. We also want to let people know that our staff, our volunteers, we're really trying to stay current on what is happening in the area of gerontology, and as I said before, the textbook starts at age 25 for the process of aging. It's very just encouraging. But we are really trying to listen to what people here in Westport want to have in activities and programs, and we're trying to act on that. So I don't know if you have any other questions or things that you want us to do.
Thank you. So Dick, you're the liaison, so I'm going to
That's
give you
right.
the first.
Correct.
Yeah, well, thank you, and I do have a couple of thoughts, all of which would be familiar to you, and to you, Eileen, and the others. The question of long-term financial sustainability or survivability was part of the discussion in the business plan, the strategic plan. And I threw out it for a conversation, and I don't vote, I'm not on the board, so this was really a board task, but I wondered about, with the town likely not to be giving much more money to the Council on Aging, and the continued growth of the council because of the needs of seniors, is that going to be a problem, I guess is the way I put it. Is that, and I don't think there's any easy answer to this question, but it was recognized in the discussion as to how we deal with that. And can we, as the needs of the population grows, will the council be in a position financially, and also that includes the premises, the building, the facilities, will it be able to meet that demand? So it's not really a question that has a cut and dried answer,
No,
but it's something we
right. It's something that we think about. We could offer more services if we had more space. Space is extremely limited. As you well know, there's things that are going on all the time, and there's certain restrictions for space on what can happen. Yes, we need more space. If we had more space, we could offer more programming. We could be much more responsive to people who are saying, you know, I need pickleball. Well, there's no place that we could offer pickleball, you know, among other things. But people want to walk, and that's something that we've explored. Can we do indoor walking at the high school, and what would that take? You know, there's a whole list of things. If in the full report there was, there were about 100 things that people said that they wanted to see the Council on Aging do, and we do about 60% of that. And most of the others require additional space. So we could probably muddle along at the rate that we are and just hope that the good people can pay the fare, and that there would be also the grants that are out there to support things like Supportive Day, and some of the other programs. So it's also, I think, and we had spoken about this, is that each town in the Commonwealth has to have a council on aging. And what they do with it is really up to each and every jurisdiction. But if we're not a member, then we don't qualify for some of the funds that come through that are very important. So,
Yeah, so I guess that there is a limitation of a sort.
Absolutely.
And it's real. However, it's recognized in the plan, and it's something that has to be constantly reviewed and discussed in the hopes that facilities, maybe someday would be larger, or there'd be, maybe if you end up at the old high school, that could perhaps help. But it is something that we talked about as part of the strategic plan, because it really is an issue. But in the meantime, there's plenty of work to do, and we're
That's
doing it
right.
quite well.
any other questions, or?
Anything else? You did a lovely job on the report. I think a lot of people don't think of themselves as aging, but many of us are.
That's right. Everybody is if you're over 25.
I met with Eileen a few weeks ago, and I was telling her, I think some of the volunteers at the Council on Aging are older than some of the participants at the Council on Aging. It's just another way you're keeping young and vibrant and active in the community.
Engaged.
It's a really good examples of people volunteering to
Right,
help other people in
right.
the community, and the social aspect of it is just phenomenal, what you guys are doing down there.
Well, I think that one of the things, as part of aging and part of the real problems that we have in this country is loneliness. I mean, when you have the Surgeon General say that loneliness is a problem and a contributing factor to many serious and chronic illnesses, then where are we going to meet? How are we going to get together? And that's really what we think about all the time in terms of our programs and activities. Because, sometimes you just need to meet other people.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the Town Administrator preliminary FY26 budget discussion, and then some free cash conversation here.
So not a whole lot to update the board on at this point. The budget's working its way through the process. It's currently going before the Finance Committee. The departments are presenting their budgets individually to the Finance Committee. That's happening just about every Tuesday night. This is the busy time for the Finance Committee, as well as all of us that are working on the finances here in town. In general, we haven't seen much movement on any of the numbers since our last meeting in December. The only update I do have is the health insurance. We met with our regional health insurance group last week, and they sent notice out saying that, actually, we met a few weeks ago, they sent notice out last week stating that they're projecting about a 10+% increase in health insurance, which is, $300,000 increase to our budget. I was carrying that amount in the preliminary budget that was before the Select Board last month, but I was hoping that we'd be able to reduce that a bit and use that elsewhere. Does not look like we'll be able to do that. There is some discussion among the group to use some of the investment savings, some of the investment returns to reduce that 10% amount, but that has not been voted on by the committee. The other big numbers, school choice, charter school, Chapter 70, and the rest of the state aid. We should have a general idea when the governor's budget comes out at the end of the month. Until that happens, we really don't have any additional or any new information for the board. I think that's coming out January 22nd or 23rd, so we should have some numbers before our next meeting. Two things that I would like to just bring before the board is first, the budget is due to the Finance Committee on February 20th. We are meeting 4 days later on the 24th, so if it's okay with the board, I'd like to just send an email to the Finance Committee and ask them if it's okay if we submit our budget on the 24th. It gives us an extra 2 weeks to prepare and make changes. We did that last year, and I don't anticipate a problem, but I just want to check with the committee and check with the board, see if that's okay.
Please do that.
And then the other thing is the free cash allocation. CIPC is meeting, they're meeting this Thursday, and they're meeting again next week. And it would be helpful to that committee if they had some direction as to roughly how much free cash may be available for them to look at for projects. It doesn't have to be the finite number at this point, but based on the free cash allocation and the capital improvement, the five-year financial plan from last year, the recommended allocation would be anywhere from 1.5 to 1.7 million of free cash to be used for capital improvement projects. So my thought at this point is if we could, at least as a preliminary number to the committee, somewhat agree that 1.5 would be a good starting point for them to start working on projects. That would be helpful to them as well as myself. We could always go up a little bit as we move through the budget process, but I think that's a good starting point.
So Jim, the one on the left is the one that is per the 5-year plan, so it has the 10%, 5%. That was kind of the idea on the, from the plan, right?
Yeah.
So the one on the right, you made some changes. You just want to talk about what your thought is about those changes?
Yeah, this is just a different option, right? So last year with the 5-year plan, financial plan, we said, with the free cash, why don't we allocate a percentage to different categories every year, with a 10% going back into free cash for the following year, percentage going into the stabilization account, percentage going into the special ed, capital expense, and warrant and budget articles. So on the right, we're looking at, in the near future, if not this year, possible large capital expense as a fire engine, which could be in the range of $900 to $1 million. So we're looking at if we put, maybe 500 into the capital stabilization fund this year, maybe 500 next year, we would have enough to purchase that next year. So that is the big change here. And we reduced the additional free cash carryover from 523 down to 344. These are, I don't want to say they're arbitrary, but they're just a different option. I think some of these really need to be worked out with the Capital Improvement Planning Committee before we get too far. And again, my thought tonight was if we could get a general commitment from the board that 1.5 is a reasonable number to move forward with the committee, that gives us some guidance going forward.
Well, I think it makes sense to me. Dick, did you have?
Yeah, it's, we're in good position this year with increased free cash, so that number is stronger than it has been in years, so I'm happy with that. I also noticed in the other one it has $1.7 million, but I think $1.5 million is a good working number, and it'd be well received.
Yeah, and I think, so Jim, if I understood that correctly, so that you went from 1.7 to 1.5 because you shifted some of that into capital stabilization
That's right.
for the future purchase. That may be something to talk about with CIPC too. They think that's a wise move. I like the idea of sticking to the formula, but I also totally fine with the changes you made personally.
So, if I may, the Finance Committee would weigh in on this as well, I assume, not only the CIPC. We spend most of our time figuring out which projects or which acquisitions of equipment would occur. So this is a little different for us. It's good to have it discussed there, but I don't know if the CIPC would have strong opinions on the number part. They'd be interested in the $1.5 million very much, but the others, I don't know how they'd feel about that. But we'll talk about it and see where that takes us. But this, I don't think it'd be a lot different than what you have outlined.
Anybody else have thoughts or direction to Jim?
I don't need a vote at this point. I think it's just some general guidance to give us some direction going forward.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the budget?
I was going to ask a question. Maybe this is something you're going to discuss. Is it memo in here regarding health insurance?
Yes.
And that's the SMHG, is that the Southeast Mass Health Group, the consortium we belong to?
Yes.
And the number here, I guess, is 10%, renewal increase of 10.5%. There are a lot of numbers in here. I was trying to find the one that applied to us. Is that the number you had already contemplated in your preliminary budget?
I have it covered for that amount. I think I was up 11 or 12%.
Okay.
So it is covered in the preliminary budget at this point. I was hoping it would be less so that we could use some of that money for the operating budget, but
Yeah. But it looks like from the memo, which is written by the insurance company, insurance agent, I guess, Gallagher Benefit Services, it looks like we're in better shape than some other towns, and they had some big increases.
yeah, I was talking to a relative who works for another community off of 495, and I think they're up almost 20% increase in their health insurance.
What about our property insurance?
Property insurance, I increased that, I want to say 15% this year. I don't have that, we get that number late. Yeah, they've recommended anywhere from 10 to 15% for budgeting purposes. Usually it's a little bit less than that, their recommendation, but we got hit pretty hard with property insurance 2 years ago when they reevaluated all our properties. So I think the valuation has been determined, so there shouldn't be any surprises there. We've been fortunate with health insurance. The last couple of years, we've been going 3%, 5%. Last year, we supplemented the increase with some investments. They may do that again this year, but that kind of kicks it down the road a little bit as well. It's almost like using free cash for your operating budget, so.
Really, the bad part about the health insurance cost is not only hits the operating budget, but it hits our employees,
Well,
because
that's
our employees are paying 50% of their health insurance
Yep.
costs, so,
Yeah, so a 10% to us is a 10%
to the
them as well.
employees, yeah.
And retirees.
Well, the numbers are different for the employees and the retirees, if I recall. We pay more than 60%, I thought, for the prison employees.
You're right, we're paying about 62, 60, yeah, I always get the number mixed up, 62 to 64%, but there would still be a 10% increase to what they pay, and a 10% increase to what we pay.
I had heard in my dealings with insurance, which I still dabble in, that these increases that we've seen should be lessening, and there's some signs of that in the insurance literature. Obviously, it hasn't hit us, so this may be a next year thing, but it does seem to be a lessening of that. And of course, that usually happens. You have years of big increases, and then it starts to lessen, but then it goes the other way too, and that's what's happened. So there may be some hope on the property casualty side. I'm not sure about the health side. The health is driven by a lot of other factors. But anyway, that's for another year.
So just one more thing on the budget. The Finance Committee Chair has asked to have a joint meeting with the Select Board and the FinCom and the School Committee. So we're looking to schedule something like that, probably after the governor's budget is out. But look for that coming up. All right, anything else on the budget? Okay, thank you. Town Administrator reports.
So we did receive notification from the Mass Division of Local Services that we were approved for the amendment to the diamond debt exclusion, so that small amount increase there to the overall project would be excluded debt and would not come out of the operating budget. We should note that the overall project reimbursement from the MSBA has increased, so the overall amount that the town will be borrowing will actually be less than we originally anticipated, even with this increase. So we got kind of good news on both sides. We were not 100% sure that we would get that approval from DLS, and I think that's a good thing. It's only about $30,000 a year, but it's still 30 that does not have to come out of the operating budget at this point. Seaport Economic Council grant. Town was notified that we received a $94,000 grant for feasibility study for the Westport Town Dock project. The study will focus on climate change, sea level rise, and strategies to mitigate their impact on the town docks. I just want to note the town's been very successful in securing various Seaport grants over the last few years. We had a grant for Hicks Bridge, we had one for the town landing and the watershed, that town landing, the parking lot area drainage, and boat ramp up at the head of Westport, also Hicks Bridge Landing. And I want to give a little credit out to the Planning Department as well as the Marine Services for managing and applying for these grants. It's not just the application that's time-consuming, it's the administration of these grants that really gets time-consuming, the different reporting that's required for each grant. And every grant has different reporting requirements. Some are advances, some are reimbursements. Every reimbursement paperwork is different, so kudos to them for getting that done. We've had a tremendous amount of grants over the last 5 or 6 years. You know, I've talked to some other administrators in other towns, and I think we've well above most of the communities, if not all the communities of our size, in getting grants and applying for grants and getting projects done. The Macomber Loop Water Project, that's another grant that we had received, and we've talked about this a number of times. Just kind of quick update, they've started the work on Osborne Street. They had moved over to Gifford Road just before the holidays, starting to come in from Route 6. They did hit some ledge at the top of the hill there. They're supposed to start work again on Wednesday. They took a week off for the holidays. They're going to move to another job, and the job got delayed, so they were a little delayed getting back, but they should start up again on Wednesday. We're still working with Mass DOT on the access permit. They should be doing some test pits this week or next week in Route 6, which are being required by Mass DOT, as well as some borings in that area. We had a meeting with Mass DOT. I mentioned this the last meeting in December. They've been pretty cooperative lately in getting the comments back to us. I think it was only 3 days. They got a full set of comments back to us, so they are working with us to get this project going and get things done. I believe, I don't know if you want to talk about that in your update, but
Well, you pretty much hit on it. I mean, I looked at some of those comments going back and forth, and there were some issues with Kleinfeld not doing things in accordance with their specifications, so that's one thing you're not gonna, if it doesn't meet their specifications, they're not gonna let you do it, so it's pretty simple, just, we need to do what they ask, and we can move forward with that.
and then we're looking to schedule a meeting the end of the month.
At the Macomber, so that ought to be good. I think we're gonna have a good turnout for that, and hopefully we can have a good update for both the businesses on the Route 6 end of it and the neighborhood, because I think we got a lot going on in the neighborhood. A lot of people talking, a lot of interest in tying in. So if we can have that stuff for them, it'll be great.
Yes, so the priority, I think, for that meeting would be anybody that's on the line, on the water lines that are being installed. If they have any interest in tying in, or even if they don't, if they could come to the meeting, we can tell them what type of resources there'll be to help fund some of those service connections. We're looking at putting, the Infrastructure Oversight Committee is looking, putting some of the grant money towards actually installing the services into the foundation, which would be a considerable cost savings to the property owners. But it would have to be something that is done relatively soon, and they would have to agree to tie into the water system within, a certain amount of time, 3 to 6 months. And again, there is no requirement for anybody to tie into this water line. This is being funded through grants and through ARPA funding. It's not costing the local taxpayers any money. This is a grant that came to the town, and if we didn't get that grant, it would have went to another community. So it was good that we got it. But the intent of that meeting is to get the residents who are close proximity to that line at the meeting so that we can provide them the information they need to decide whether or not they want to tie in. And I think that's all I have.
On the Macomber building itself, have you discussed anything with the contractor on bringing that service into there as soon as possible?
Yeah, so we've met, I know Roger Fernandez, who is our engineering consultant, or kind of project manager on this, is met with the with the school department, with Manny Moniz with the school department to see what's needed to tie that system into our line. So that, yeah, we're hoping that'll be one of the first connections in there. And we're looking to coordinate the interior plumbing as well, so we can get that up and going. Not the Legion, what's the other, Roulette,
VFW?
VFW. Can you reach out to those guys too and try to talk with them? They need a little bit of convincing on tying in on their cost savings, which in the last meeting it's going to be a savings to them to tie in, but I think they need it in black and white.
So I think they're on the line, so they will be notified of the meeting. If they have any questions, we can reach out to them as well. That's all I have.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, the last thing is, we had mentioned maybe the first meeting in February to get KP Law in to give us an update on current cases, if that works for the committee.
Thank you. Minutes. Craig, are you recommending the minutes?
Yes, for the December 16th, 2024, I recommend to approve them and read them.
So you're moving them.
Yes.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous with one absence. Report on the bill warrant.
The bill warrant was for the week of 12/27, Christmas week, and I had to forego Christmas shopping to come and do this. you know.
Christmas Eve, you're
Yeah.
signing the bill warrant.
Well, Christmas morning of Christmas Eve day, because I think you closed at noon, if I recall. But anyway, it was fairly routine, $1.8 million, which is lower than some of the other numbers you've heard from. Everything was in order, and it went smoothly. So I made an extra copy because I didn't know if it got into the package. So you have that there.
Thank you. The next item we have is liaison committee reports or suggestions for future agenda items. Craig, anything for you?
We are doing a site visit on one of the, for the Affordable Housing Trust on a piece of property that we had been brought to our attention in response to the RFP that we put out.
Good.
And it'll be this Friday, I think.
Okay. Hopefully, good weather for you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Dick, anything from you?
Not much. As mentioned before, the CIPC meets again this week, and it's getting to the point where we're going to start to rank the projects and consider the amount of money available as discussed. The audit committee doesn't have a meeting scheduled, but we will be following up with our town accountant, Anthony Roselli, to see the status of that, because we expected that to be finished somewhere in January. So I'll follow through on that, then we will schedule a meeting, but that hasn't yet been scheduled. We're good on that. There's no issue. So that's about it.
Okay. I haven't had any meetings, but I do want to just note that the Offshore Wind Committee is scheduled to meet on January 16, so not this week, but next week. We're attempting to get Vineyard Wind in to come talk about their potential projects out in the lease area, but I don't know that that's been finalized yet. But keep a lookout for the offshore wind. That was all for me. Manny?
We pretty much hit it all, and been trying to enjoy the holidays, and they're over now, and after the 28th, I guess we'll hit it hard.
Okay. I don't see anyone from the public for any statements from the public. Just a reminder to people that we do have vacancies on some of our boards and committees. Also, if you don't see a vacancy but you're interested, let us know. Actually, I do have a suggestion for a future agenda topic. So the Finance Committee Chair has asked us to consider adding a FinCom rep to offshore wind. So can you please put that on a agenda? Okay, anything else? Anything under the 48-hour rule?
I have one item, it's not really a 48-hour rule, but just to let the board know, we did get a resignation from administrative clerk over in the highway department. So she'll be leaving the end of this month. She's working part-time right now. She's kind of helped out, and she's agreed to maybe stay on a little bit longer to help train the new employee part-time if needed, so, yeah, just so the board knows.
And Jim had to remind me, we actually have had a position posted for a similar position, but I forgot that we posted it a while back. So we're still entertaining candidates for that.
Yes.
Yeah. Hopefully soon.
Are we close to finding?
Yeah, I think we're very close. I'm hoping for the next meeting that we have a candidate before the board.
It's another thing that engineer could help us with, that paperwork over there.
Yep, Chapter 90 stuff.
So we are going to go into executive session. We're not going to conduct any business after the executive session. We'll just adjourn. Just a reminder that our next meeting is in 3 weeks on January 27. So I will entertain a motion pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, where the chair declares an open meeting will have a detrimental effect to A, review the following executive session minutes to determine if the minutes can be released: January 23, 2023, February 21, 2023, April 3, 23, April 18, 23, May 30, 23, June 12, 23, June 26, 23, August 21, 23, September 11, 23, October 23rd, 2023, December 4, 2023, and B, to approve the meeting minutes of the executive session of December 16, 2024.
I, Craig Dutra, move to go into executive session to review the minutes of the dates that were mentioned.
Richard Brewer seconds that motion.
So all in favor?
Manny Sores, aye?
Aye, Shawna Tees.
Richard Brewer.
I, Craig Dutra.
All right, we are in executive session.